This is a two-watch collection like you've never experienced before. This is one where we've got a few guests, more than one. So Megan Young, watchmaker, dear friend of mine who I've known for years. Megan and I worked together at Zoop's in the UK, and now the Watch Atelier. So a slight rebrand in the last couple of years, but we'll hear about that.
Yeah, I can tell you a bit about that.
In the next 45 minutes or so. And then we've got Manny from our previous conversation on the Watch Journey podcast, and then Pete, my co-host on the Watch Journey podcast. So yeah, we've got the whole house here. And we were just thinking that this would be super cool because as watch lovers, we often don't fully understand the other side of the coin, the watchmaking side of the coin. And that's where someone like Megan, who really is the best in the business, comes in. Megan, give us a quick backstory. So we've talked about your accent, but let's talk about it briefly again. Where the hell are you from? How the hell did you get into watches and why?
So I'm from Holland. As we just discovered, I have a Mancunian twang.
No comments, please.
No, my dad's English. No, my dad's English from Manchester. My mum was from Holland, sadly passed. But so my dad's still in Holland. I have a big Dutch family. And when I was younger, I was very good in doing things with my hands. My dad wasn't very good. He's a chef, but not very technical. So I used to do all the electrics in the house when I was younger, fix everything, build all the cabinets. And when I was younger, I wasn't very academical. So I early on in life discovered that probably I should do something with my hands. And when I was 14, I went to it's like in Holland, they probably do the same in England, where you go and look at a load of professions to see what is interest to you. And I went to this college to have a look, and I came by jewellery making. And I thought, I really love jewellery. I would love to make jewellery. So I came home and said, Dad, I'm going to be a goldsmith. And he went,
Monday night at dinner.
Okay.
Dad, I've got something to tell you.
Yeah, he said, let's first go and have a look at what it is. So I go, don't know what it is. So let's have a look what it is. So we went to the to the school where in Holland is the only school that does watchmaking and jewellery making. Vakschool Schoonhoven.
Say that again?
I was going to say, Justin, can you say that?
Vauxhall Schoonhoven.
Vakschool Schoonhoven.
No, go
again.
I'm not going to get it.
This is going to take too long.
Okay.
But no, so we went to the school, and then I never owned a watch at that point because I was quite young.
Did your dad?
He did it, but not. He wouldn't invest anything in watches. Now he's a chef. He doesn't. He's in the kitchen. Everything gets dirty. Even the watches he has now. So I went to school, and then I looked at the goldsmithing area, and it was just very creative, very make the biggest piece of jewelry kind of thing. And I was like, no, I really like fine and simple. So I thought, I don't really like that. So we went round the school, and then I came by the watchmaking department. And I just saw all these people taking all the parts out, and I was like, "Oh, what is this then?" And they went, "Oh, this is watchmaking." And I said, "Oh, what does that involve?" When I was engineering, and you have to understand it a lot more than we were like comparing it to the goldsmithing. I was like, "Oh, I would really enjoy that," and I was kind of sold when I was 14, and then decided I was just going to finish. My education in Holland, you could do when you're 16. You can decide what you want to do, basically. And I did this college. And then I moved to Switzerland, and I worked for Frederik Constant for a while in Plan-le-Oued. And after that, I moved to Germany, and I worked for Wempe for a while. And then with Wempe, they offered me a job in London.
What's your French and German like, just out of interest? Did you pick
Petit
it up
peu
when you were there?
and zeer goed. But yeah, so I learned, I must say, when I lived there, I got a lot better. But German is definitely better than French. But yes, so then I moved to London 8 years ago now. 8 years ago, worked for Wempe there, then set up the workshop for Harrods. They have an in-house workshop now. Mm-hmm. So I developed that, set it up. It's in their fine watches area. And then Joe approached me for Zoop's for their aftercare And I was umming and ahhing what to do at that point, because I had a few different places that I could go to. But yeah, I took a leap for me, because I was always in the branded section, so going to pre-owned, which was really enjoyable. I learned a lot. Set up a team there, and now I am a managing director of the Watch Atelier. I set that up independently, and now it's an independent workshop, one of the biggest in the UK. And we're growing that as we speak. So we only started last year, and it's going really well. So yeah, and it's really high end. So
with regards to your college, so when you finished your college, could you then make a watch? Could you put a watch together? And then also, what did you do at Frederic Constant and Vempe? What were the roles you had there? As in, were you just...
Yeah, so at Frederic Constant I was junior. Okay. So I did all sorts. So development of the move, so manufacture, so it's development of the movement, testing out different mainsprings, because they had half in-house, half not in-house. So it was a development. Selita was just becoming a lot more desired, because obviously ETA was bought and wasn't supplying anymore. So it was that era. I did all sorts. I did the final QC, mainly aftercare service as well. I worked on tourbillons at the end. I worked on all of their movements, manufacturing as well as aftercare.
Haven't they just launched a really good value tourbillon?
Yeah, Frederic Constant, yeah.
12,000 pounds.
Yeah, they've always have. Yeah, they always have. Yeah, but this one in particular. But yeah, they always were quite good value for what you could get. And at Vempe, I did lots of different brands. Over time, I've become accredited for brands such as Patek Philippe, Rolex, Cartier, Baume & Panerai, Hublot. So, I've done all my brand trainings as such.
So when you're working on the movements for Vempe and you get different brand levels, as in, are you having to spend, if it's Patek, I imagine that's going to take a little more time, as in, what's the difference, as in, right, you do it.
I've definitely asked you that question privately before, and you've given a straight answer. You can be honest today.
Yeah.
Which brand?
We can cut it out.
Who where is the podcast going?
Where are we? No.
Yeah.
What do you think?
There is
You've
definitely
seen so many watches. You worked on so many brands.
Yeah, there is definitely a difference between brands. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if there's commonly used movements, right, that we all know of, that are a lot easier because you see them a lot more, and equally, if you the same as cars or anything that you service in general, if you see it day in, day out, you're going to be very equipped with servicing it. If you see something that is a little bit more complicated, so not just a freehand, but it has a complication, or it's a movement that is just not very well made. So sometimes it's not about how complicated and niche something is. Sometimes it's, if something is really not well made, it becomes really difficult to fix. Because basically they're creating a movement that already has problems in it. So the only way you know what the problems are is if you've manufactured them and you're well aware that you haven't tested something, or you're not sure of what happened there. I think that's where it becomes complicated as well. So there's different kind of complications. There's one because of the complication the watch has, two because of the way it's made and maybe it wasn't tested properly, and three, some movements are just always difficult, like the 2000 or something. I think every brand that used them it has basically said, can we please make an alternative to this movement?
2000, where's that from? Is that
ETA 2000? Yeah. Omega use it, Cartier use it, a lot of brands use it, and it's one of the worst movements ever made.
Do you see a difference between vintage movements and modern movements? And I guess they will have, the technology within watches has moved on quite a lot over time. And do you find that the technology makes it harder to service or easier to service?
Harder, I think, yeah. Vintage is harder because it has more wear, so you have to do proper watchmaking, which not every watchmaker learns when they get out of college now.
What do you mean by proper watchmaking?
As in, you can't just go to the drawer and replace a part if you're not sure what the problem is, which would happen with the current collection because the parts are being made. But for the watches that are no longer being made, the parts are no longer being made. So it's harder to just swap something when it's broken. You actually look, what is the problem and can I fix it? Then it could involve making a part or sourcing something that will work for that watch. So I think, sorry, you lost the question now.
You're almost you're almost having to do a sort of Roger Smith on it and fashion something to make it work. You're having to
you're creating
on
a part of the watch.
Yeah, you're making parts.
Yeah, but then going back to the question where you said about the new watches compared to vintage, new movements, they're trying to experiment, right? Because it's at the end they're making something that needs to sell.
Yep.
And to be able to sell something, they need to be new and creative. And at the moment, there's so many patented for so many things. To discover something new in a watch is quite hard because again, we're coming to the testing and how much development that takes to, create a new escapement or to create a new material. It's not just easily done. That is a whole investment in machineries to make it. And I don't know if you've ever been to manufacturers, but if you see how, what it takes to just make one part and produce it in a higher quantity, there's a lot that goes into that. So for us as watchmakers, when we have new watches come in, it becomes harder because they have special tooling that they want you to have for new things. They haven't tested the parts maybe so long. So when you look at, I'm not going to name brands here, but if you look at some brands, as an accredited workshop, we then look at what they require us to change just as a routine. And nearly half of the watch goes out and new watch comes in because they've updated this part so many times because they discovered that it's not completely what they wanted. Then they keep changing it, and then eventually, this one brand eventually then went back to the original part that they fitted years ago.
They're just testing you out.
So
just trying to keep you on your toes.
That is fascinating because this is the type of stuff that we never ever hear about.
No.
My side, on the journalism side, we just don't have the depth of knowledge. The stories never have that. Plus, they're an advertiser, so we'd never talk about it, of course. And then there's the buyer. The dealer probably doesn't know necessarily.
No.
It's really fascinating.
And I think does the end client know
How much has changed?
how much has changed
in a service?
Because we were talking, about. We've talked before a bit about, especially when you're buying vintage, you want the watch to be whole. Like you don't want the watch to change in any way because you're buying that story, you're buying the history. And, if I was to send my watch out to be serviced and half of the inside of the watch was new, is it truly still the watch it was when I sent out? And I think that must be really difficult for you as a watchmaker.
Yeah, I think, no, a client doesn't always know what yes, anything that has value, like a dial, like hands, like a crystal, everything that is important and not a part of a service, you pay basically extra when you want that part. Anything else within the movement can be changed over time because it wears. So it's not going to last forever. The watch will last forever, but not every component will last forever. Like a mainspring is quite a routine thing to change those anyway, because over time it's a tension. There's no batteries in a mechanical watch, so over time that tension goes, because it has tension 24/7 for 360. It's a lot of it will wear out. So that's a routine thing. Some of the wheels are changed by routine, but when you have brands that nearly change a lot of it, it's not something that they would advertise. I don't think it's a good advertisement. Oh, buy this watch.
Who are you really impressed by from a watchmaking perspective?
Oh, lots. We have so many.
Are there any that come to mind? And then maybe a movement as well that you really love working on?
Oh, well, I took one with me, which is El Primero, Zenith. I think, it's the first automatic chronograph made. I think Zenith, at the moment, it isn't in the spotlight, but, I don't forget the history of it, if that.
Have you been to the
I haven't
museum?
actually.
Is that the attic?
The attic, yeah.
I haven't actually been to
pleasure of being in there once before. That was pretty cool because that's a crazy story. The guy kept it, right? Without them doing that, they would not have been able to hidden it up there.
Yeah. No, I heard the story, but I've never been there.
So Zenith, you like the El Primero?
The El Primero. So I recently, not recently, because I'm Dutch. Christian van der Klauw, my friend Pim Koeslag, he's just taken over the business, and I just think they make amazing, beautifully movements. And I mean, they did
phases and astronomical stuff.
It's all
right?
astronomical, all astronomical. They did the Van Cleef one as well. That was their movement, and so they're fantastic. I mean, all these brands make. I mean, Fashion will make fantastic movements. Jaeger, most movements made by Jaeger.
Master Control.
It's certainly all the ones we've sold. It's in Zenith and Chaumet.
I mean, and JLC, they've done so much for the watchmaking industry in terms of, bringing forward movements that are versatile and are used in a lot of different watches. I mean, in this Vacheron, it's essentially a JLC based movement, right? And AP did the same thing with their QP.
The 2121. We were just talking about that because Pete's got the AP, and I don't notice movements that often unless they're highly decorated. But that movement, I always notice when it's the base caliber of something else with a module on top for the.
Yeah, it's used in a lot of brands.
That's a nice functional. Automatic, no?
No, it is. That's why it's used so many. I think, which is great for us because it overlaps parts, which is great.
Nice.
But you have amazing brands. I mean, Glashütte, I said to you before, I love the brand Glashütte because I think they're nearly on par with A. Lange and Söhne, which is amazing. But they used to be one company, so a lot of their movements kind of overlap the quality side of it. So I really like those brands. But I think there's, what I would like to see, I mean, there's a lot of upcoming brands, but I think the competition is so high that it becomes, like I say, a big investment, and, you need a lot of different expertise. It's not all done by hand. And if you do it all by hand, it's not a commercial business. So to make, the next Patek Philippe without the history, creating it from now, it's just so hard. So I would like to see somebody try that properly. Though.
Is there an up-and-coming independent that's caught your eye, apart from our Dutch friends?
There's a gentleman, Kubek, is he called? I can't remember his name now. He makes. I think he's in Poland. I'm not 100% sure. I'll do some more research.
Do some digging and link
before I do that.
And what's your thought on Jean then, in terms, because he's got a lot of the. Have you noticed the spotlight and the credit? Yeah, because he gets a lot of attention and credit. Is that hype marketing, or is it genuinely really impressive that the movements he creates?
Yeah, I really love what they do. I think that is maybe one of the upcoming ones that well, not really, because they're doing well already. It's not a new. But I think I'm not sure if they would increase their production. And I've spoken to them already about the after sale side of it. And I don't think they see enough watches coming around to actually market it bigger, and the need of kind of people to be trained on them. And I think one thing that came to light is that exactly what we said about the testing period is that it's all very specific. The people that are doing the aftercare service are also doing the manufacturing of the watches, because they know exactly what might be the issue when it comes back, which then becomes very hard, because then basically you'll have to be trained with one of their watchmakers for a long period of time to then be able to do exactly the same in a different territory for the brand. But they make amazing stuff. I think they'll always be niche. That's what I think, but I might be completely wrong.
They seem to have found that sweet spot with about 800 watches a year. It's still very hard to get one, and they've got their own locations, so they can control the supply. You don't see many on the pre-owned market. And 800 is still a pretty damn good return at the type of price point they're selling out at. And we've got London. We've got London boutique opening soon, so that'll be interesting. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ironically, in the same location as Holland and Holland, the gun makers. Which they did a collaboration with, to the dismay of their retailer, who was 2 doors down at William and Son, who retailed Jean for a long time. And then and that was actually the first article I ever wrote for Dinky, was on this collaboration with Jean and Holland, because I had a Damascus steel dial. It was a stunning dial, but I remember William and Son like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Where's our Damascus steel? And it's like, it just tickles me that. And Jean clearly didn't give a shit, and that's also part of the reason why people kind of love him as well and love watchmakers, because they're all different characters, and that's interesting as well.
I had a trip around the manufacturer the other day, about 2 months
Did
ago.
you?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Most interesting thing was that the watchmakers and the people, you only get one Jean lab coat, only one, and they never will give you another one. So they will have their own, and they will like, because obviously you see the Jean, you know, he's always in that lab coat, right? You're only allowed one. Yeah, because I was like, that's an iconic lab coat.
So if it's too dirty, they're going to have to find a new job.
Yeah, right, find a job. Yeah, you're out. You're gone.
You can't wash it either.
Can't wash it. I
The
don't
problem is you're too close to someone and it starts to smell. And it
was it a bit smelly when you did
it? But it's a bit like talking of the Ashes, right? The cricket's on at the moment. So the old floppy. Do you know... Do you know what the old floppy is?
Hang on a second.
The old floppy is the Australian cap that they wear to play cricket in.
Oh, okay.
And they never wash it. So if you get your first test cap and you're 25, by the time you're 35, it's going to look very, very different. And so
That's
the
horrible.
hat that they wear is pretty grim. And the sweat is quite visible on it.
And why is that?
Just a luck thing, I think. It was like Steve Waugh, Mark Waugh, those guys from the past, Ricky Ponting, and they sort of set that as a thing, I think. And they never wash it now. But the Jean watchmakers can wash their...
They can wash, yeah. But as in... The really cool thing with it, there was what you were saying in terms of they had to be trained. And so I met the guy who made my Divine. He was like, he would have been the guy who looks after your Divine. And so that was really cool just to like shake their hand. And, you know, obviously he was the one who was after service care as well.
And you went, actually, the timing's a bit...
The most interesting bit was that you said everyone left for lunch and there was one person still working at the bench. And it was Mr. Jean himself.
Oh, well, no, that was another story. That must have been someone else. Yeah. I don't. Maybe that was the case.
No. Oh, okay. Someone's
you've
definitely
merged
told me that recently.
Yeah.
But apparently he is still working at the bench, which that's pretty
he was there. He was like, you saw him around. You saw him at both the Dar manufacturer and.
Did you not also make a trip to Anderson Genève whilst you were in Geneva as well?
I gate crashed them, completely gate crashed them because I got in contact with them and they said, "Oh no, you look, it's just before Watches and Wonders. Like, we're not going to fit you in." And then I said to you, I think you said, "Oh no, there is the where they are based," and it's out of the way, and it feels like it's not where they should be. It's like by the motorway, and so I went with my now wife, and we're just walking there again. It can't be up here. And then literally just opened the door, and there was obviously Sven himself.
Was he sitting there?
He was there, with his two young makers, and it was the most amazing experience. I was so sorry. I didn't actually think I was walking into where you make the watches, and just had the most authentic experiences. And the two young guys were so lovely. He was really lovely, and he was like, he came out, showed me all the watches, showed me what they're working on, and and their watches are
That's actually a really interesting segue before we come to your two watches, man, because this is longer than we've ever talked about anything before coming to the two watches in this series, because we have to do this because you're fascinating. But do you think that there are younger people getting into watchmaking, and do you think there are more women getting into watchmaking? Because we were talking about Rebecca Struthers earlier today, and I get the sense that watches are super cool in the culture environment now. The community, they've infiltrated culture. And that's seen prices go nuts and people get into it. And the sense is that young people might be more interested in doing watchmaking now. Is that the case, do you think? And women and female watchmakers?
Big topic at the moment. I've just taken on two new students, just fresh students, basically. There's no women that have applied yet, but we did a bench test just before the graduation, the watchmaking school, so the university. So there's different schools in the UK. I don't know if you're aware. So you have WhatsApp, but it's quite expensive if you go private on WhatsApp. But if you get a sponsorship, so we are a sponsor, but if you get a sponsorship, then obviously it's paid for, but you usually already are working for the brand or you're going to work for the brand afterwards. So there is an interest for the people that are sponsoring it because it costs money to sponsor somebody for it. So it's quite hard to get that if you're new and you're young and you're looking. And then you have different training courses that you could do with the BHI. And then you have the university in Birmingham that does a watchmaking degree as well. So that's where we've been taking on our students. What we found is that there is a lot of clocks that they do as well and a lot of watches. So it's kind of now working with the university to see how we can get the watchmaking side, the basic skills, to a level where that when they finish that schooling, or how you call it, and become a watchmaker, that they have the basic skills so that they start anywhere with working, that they have that fundamental skill to be able to then become more skilled in the profession, which at the moment we're seeing there's still a little bit of development needed in that area. The WhatsApp course is really good, but like I said, everybody is allocated a place, so it's not, it's not that they will apply for us.
They go into the marketplace.
They don't go into market. So we have a real shortage of watchmakers at the moment.
I did read that on Watch Pro the other day.
Yeah,
they
we
said
have
there's
a real shortage, which is a real shame, because I do think there is people interested. I just don't think it's motivated enough, or it's probably not a word, but that is desired enough as a study. So people would love to. We have loads of applications where people would just love to come and work with you.
That's you, mate.
And they and they want to be trained, and our team's getting bigger, and we have a lot of training happening within the workshop. But we cannot take everybody from the street and train them. For us, there needs to be some basic skill level before they come on.
If they're a surgeon, if they've practiced as a surgeon, would that qualify? Would that qualify as enough handheld experience to?
So with a watchmaker, when we employ anybody, they do a bench test. So a bench test will show us how good everything is. So it doesn't mean that you have to be excellent. It's just we can see how you're working and what your common sense of engineering is. And
common
if
sense,
you...
God, that for me I hear that more often than anything else. You've got no common sense. I hear that at home almost daily.
Well,
to me, yeah.
To you?
And it cuts through like a knife into the soul.
That's hard. Yeah, that is hard.
It's probably true, but I don't think it's true. But
in what sense, though?
Well, it's all the things you did growing up. It's all the things you did growing up at home that I never did. But I almost feel this is probably a subject for another time. But I love my dad. I have loved my dad, and my mum's quite practical. But I feel that you almost needed a mother or a father figure growing up to, or maybe a teacher or someone or a friend's parent to sort of show you and develop you and push you and put you into those places like, oh, we're going to fix the washing machine today. It's like, oh God, no, we're not fixing the washing machine. I haven't got a fucking clue how to fix the washing machine. And I never had that, and so that's my excuse for not being.
I didn't have that.
Practical. Did you not?
No.
You just were drawn
My
to it
dad
naturally.
wasn't practical at all, but he encouraged me to be practical because he wasn't.
Because he wanted the shelf plate,
and I remember.
So it was out of necessity.
Yeah,
He was like,
necessity.
someone needs to put the shelf up. Come on, come on.
He said, either you're going to marry a builder or you're going to be practical yourself. No. But my dad has been a really big support in my life becoming a watchmaker. I remember when I said I want to become a watchmaker, because I was allowed to be anything but not a hairdresser, so I was still within the brackets that I was allowed. He said, okay, but if you're going to become a watchmaker and you want to be one, then you're going to Switzerland and then you're going to do it properly. He said, then you're going to be the best watchmaker in the world, because you're not just going to be a watchmaker. And I think that's always kind of resonated, like, if you're going to do something, do it properly, basically.
But you said you weren't very academic, whereas it does sound like you certainly need to have a certain amount of academia and knowledge.
Yeah, when I say not academic, I mean, I like to think I have common sense, like everybody in this room, and I studied in life. I'm a managing director now. I don't sit at the bench every day, so you have to, I've never been academic. I don't read a book before I go to bed. But I do read up on things I need to read up on, that I need to know. I've learned in life so many different things just by living in different countries, doing different roles, being kind of put in positions where you kind of have to swim and find out what to do. And I think that's the same with watchmaking. You're put on a bench, and I couldn't speak French when I started in Frédéric Constant. I was just the smiley person in the room. But you just have to learn to swim and understand things, and you break some stuff, and then you still have to smile, and then you learn not to break it. And that's, I think, in life the same, right? That's you've all done well.
Do you prefer the French, the Germans, or the Brits?
Bear in mind where you're sitting.
Or even the Dutch. You could throw the Dutch in there as well.
It's a difficult
You don't have to
one.
answer that, though, Megan. You don't have to answer that.
I think in every country there is good and bad,
Yes.
and nice people and people that are maybe not as nice. So I don't would like to class a country as
Totally right. Totally right.
yeah, better than another. I mean, yes, there was some people that voted Brexit. You know, okay, that's okay. They can go to school again.
So direct.
No, kidding.
Listen,
Kidding.
we have to move on to your 2 watches. Tell us
Okay,
what you've brought with you today, Megan. What
Well,
are
I
your 2
don't feel
watches?
it's so exciting, you know, with all of the nice pieces that you've already.
No. Hold tight. Firstly, we've not seen your 2 watches, and secondly, the reason we love watches is because they've got stories, not because of their price or their Instagrammability.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So I took 2 quickly. One is
Nice
the
little pouch you've got there.
no.
Give us a little flash. Give us a flash of that on the camera. What is that? It's a little.
The
Watch Atelier.
Yeah.
So you're telling us that if we have a service at the Watch Atelier,
we need to
we get-
restructure these pouches a
the
little bit.
Watch
There.
do we get one of those pouches when they come through the
You can have
servicing
one
process?
today if you want.
Oh God, talking Zenith. Is it a Zenith?
Yeah, well,
Hello,
yeah,
it's a
there
Zenith.
we
We
go.
teed up the Zenith,
Yeah,
and
we
it's
go.
teed up the Zenith. Yeah, so it's not a vintage one, but it's the Blue
El
El
Primero.
Primero.
there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. There's the 400B movement, so I like Zenith because you know I think they have beautiful movements. They're very well made, and the price point is really nice. So I think it's more accessible for a lot of people.
And this is the Captain.
Yeah. So I think this is a limited edition as well.
I've not seen that.
Yeah.
I've never seen it before. That's really striking. And the blue for the chronograph hand, matching the stitching on the dial, and it's a decent. It's a big case. It's a big case. What 41?
I have no idea. This
42.
is sales is your department.
But it's a larger case. I mean,
It
and
is a
again,
large case,
That's what
yeah,
I
yeah.
like is that you never know what someone's going to bring, and you never know what someone's attracted to. And definitely, we've seen watches no longer fit into the female male categories anymore, and it's cool to see you going for a large case size.
Yeah, I find it hard because these never fit me because you know it's a man's watch.
It's got very long lugs,
Long
quite
lugs as well.
broad case.
Yeah,
But this is quite different. So Pete had a Zenith, and I think this is just fundamentally it feels different to that watch, but you can it's still got the same design language.
I'm with you. I've always loved Zenith. I always thought the movements are great, and the value point is.
yeah.
And I like that is in the light blue hands, and
I
it's
find it
it's a
lovely,
little
yeah.
unique. It's again,
And it's simple. It's not too
Yeah.
busy. And
Imagine screwing up the chronograph in front of a watchmaker and the owner of the watch. The number of
So-
times in boutiques though that must happen with chronographs where someone's stop.
You can't. It's harder to break a chronograph, but when you come to perpetual calendars, it's an absolute nightmare. Yeah, and it's not so much the customer; it's more the salespeople that fiddle about with it when they're explaining the client what to do, and then they go, "Oh, I just went to 2029." Oh, well, we can't get that one back, can we?
Yeah, that is.
Time
that is
flies
nuts.
when you're having fun.
It's funny you should say that because I remember at RWC actually, and I go in there a lot and see the team in the boutique, and with that Kurt Klaus perpetual calendar through the single crown, they wouldn't often do it, but there would be a mistake because it's kind of easy to slip into the wrong, you know, what's it, station 1, station 2, station 3. Like you can easily slip into the day. Into the
I
year
know
wrong.
when you sweat and when you go
Yeah.
through it, that's it. The dial has
just
to
to put it
come
in the
off.
window in
and
the
whole-
morning of the boutique.
Yeah.
So when did you get this, Megan? And why did you? Was this something that came through the door pre-owned that you loved and then had to snag, or did you buy it new?
No, this is actually my partner's, so it's
You wear
not
it
mine.
sometimes.
No,
you wear it
I haven't yet. No, so this is his kind of style, very simple and elegant, and basically I advised on the movement. And yeah, it's just because I like the movement, basically.
So
and
did
I
he
think
say
it's
he
nice.
wanted a Zenith, or he wanted a new watch, and then you said, "Well, all I can say is you're in the foliage. You're in the foliage." I can suggest an El Primero, and then he came back and said, "Hey, I love this design."
Yeah,
Is
because
that
he's
how it
very
worked?
particular in what design. He would never wear, you know, Renaissance or Vacheron or.
Really?
Yeah.
The
he would,
design or the brand. So he's
yeah.
not too fussed about Zenith. He's more focused on that language, that design language spoke to him.
Yeah, I think because it's very plain, it's dark, it's steel,
Balanced.
which he likes. It's balanced. Yeah, he has this really cheap watch that looks like this one, which he really likes, which he's not allowed to wear.
What's it made?
So,
Who's the maker?
I don't even know. It's
Guess.
probably
Is it Guess? or
no.
is it,
Oh no, it's worse than that. It's probably bought in a
is
supermarket.
it- yeah, what do they
Yeah.
call them? More watches.
Yeah.
Your watch.
Yeah, but it looks
all right,
it looks
that's all right.
similar but worse quality basically.
Okay.
And it has a battery inside.
So this watch. So if he's not wearing it, then sometimes you grab it and you wear it. Is that how it works? Or?
Do you want me to say yes? Because then I can.
I'm interested in the psyche because obviously we only know the male side of things.
I don't. I have a lot of vintage watches that I like to wear.
Okay.
But I think I brought Zenith and I brought Tavannes, which I wear, which are both were very affected by the quartz crisis. So I think I went for a theme today, especially with things happening in the world like the GPT and stuff like this, and the AI that they use. And I think when you go to the quartz crisis, you see a little bit how that had affected that industry. And I think at the moment we're now seeing how technology affects other industries. I mean, I know you just had a chat about, so I don't want to bang on.
No.
Brought the wrong watches for this one. But you know, there were 90,000 people working at that time in the watch industry, and that went really quickly down to 25,000. And a lot of brands were trying to hold on to what they had. And Zenith is one of the brands, and Tavannes is a brand that was the third largest, manufacturer, made watches for Jaeger and did the reverse out of the first one. Cartier, the tank that they made as well, the movement for.
They also made something I've got at home, which is a little purse, a cushion thing, which you press it and then the window pops open, and then you've got the dial inside, and it was made for Dunhill. And then you throw it forward, and then the dial sits like that, and then it's a little table clock basically, but it was a purse watch, I think they called it.
Yeah, because the brands when the wristwatches became popular, the brands didn't have enough time to make these wristwatch movements yet, because they were very tiny and they were going from pocket watches. And this was one of the brands that were very good at it, so they were able to make the smallest movements so that they could be used in really thin cases and.
Where did you get this one?
I got it gifted, actually.
Oh,
yeah,
and you chose
really
it,
nice.
Or,
yeah, I did. Yeah, a friend of mine gifted it because he loves watches and he goes to auction and buys loads of stuff. And we were talking about it, and he bought me one. So yeah, so I like that. I like everything that I have means something to me. I have a drawer full of Frédéric Constant watches because we had a Christmas sale every year where you could buy really cheap watches, and all the sales went round the world with these watches. And what we used to do is put them on Happy Time. I don't know if you ever noticed, but they call it Happy Time. And good luck for China, I think it means something as well. So they were always needed to be positions on that. So we put Rodico, which is like a sticky. You know what it is, and we put it at the balance so that it wouldn't move, basically. But then it came back and everybody thought the watch was broken. And then it went into the pile of broken watches for the Christmas sale, and then all our watchmakers went whoop, and then all the broken watches were then bought by all the watchmakers, and then we all went upstairs to take the Rodico out, and it was fine. So yeah, I have lots of these kind of watches, but I don't invest in really expensive watches too much, and when I do, I would sell it it would be for somebody or something like that, which is funny. And actually, a lot of watchmakers are like that because we work with these products every day, and we love the engineering part of it, but not always the investment is made into collections. So.
That as a piece, what you're wearing at the moment, is that now? And I don't like talking about value, but is that now worth more? No, because you would think that's something that never adds up to me, because it's when you, let's say Rolex change, they've changed a bezel and they've cancelled the Hulk or whatever, that then becomes way more valuable. And I don't understand why with a brand like that, as in where there's real history and where they've helped out other watch brands, and there's real it just seems that you now can't get them. There's so few of them, and yet there's such history there. It's really strange that you can still buy them for, not crazy prices. Which
they're not put in. It's all brand. It's all brand.
Marketing.
If this was, I'll give you an example. This movement you can get. If it hasn't got a branding with it and just this brand, you can get it for £25 probably, a movement to fit in there. Now, if it was fitted in a Jaeger reverse, one of the first, it's cost you the movement, same movement, cost you £1,700. Just because of the brand. It's not even in a case of the brand, but it's just named as that brand. So it's just all to do with the marketing of it. But I think if you look in the overall picture of pre-owned market and a value of watches and how they keep the value, most watches are like cars. You drive them out and you lose value.
Yep.
There's only, I don't know how much percent, but 20%, maybe less, that actually hold value or make money. And because those are known for it, they will always be known for it, because it's, if you wanted to make an investment, you're not going to buy certain brands, are you? You're going to invest in the brands that you have track record of making money. So it's a difficult thing. It's a bit like painters, paintings and things. One can be worth nothing, but as nice, and the other one is exactly the same, but is worth a lot more because it has, this particular artist.
I just wonder whether it will change in time, because it's been nice seeing the rise of independence in terms of, because people then know a little bit more, and once the public are educated a bit more on these topics, it then does start to rebalance. So I just wonder, once someone was to know more about that brand, as in, I think that's a great story. Yeah. You then think, oh, maybe, who knows? But obviously,
after
you've got
this
it for
podcast. I mean,
yeah.
I'm going to sell this.
Exactly.
Honestly,
big money.
Philip's auction here. I call.
Yeah.
But no, it's great. Yeah.
I was going to say, what do you make of that whole story? It must hit quite hard. I mean, he wasn't a watch. Well, I should say we're probably still in the process of going through the criminal case, but the individual who was the heritage director at Omega, I don't think was a watchmaker.
We're talking about.
Yeah, I don't think he was a watchmaker. But I might be wrong.
I think he was.
Was he a watchmaker? Yeah.
I think he was.
Was he? Yeah.
Yeah.
That must have hurt a little bit to see that story. I mean, a little bit at your core, no? Just.
It's not. It doesn't look great on the brand or on that. Well, it just doesn't look great on anything really. I think it's just with money comes greed, and greed comes from everywhere, and that could be internal, external. I mean, luckily I haven't seen it internally that much, but this does happen. I mean, we're talking big money here. If you look at films where they do heists and stuff, and this
Millions.
Yeah.
I mean, is this the modern day heist? 3 million for a Frankenstein Omega watch?
It happens so much though. It's not just we authenticate a lot of watches, and there are so many Frankensteins out there, and those are the hardest to spot, because you have to look at every part of it, because it's not that it's completely fake. It's just it's not right. So it's.
Do you always tell the customer? In terms of, if you have seen that the part isn't, you have to always say.
I have seen crying people.
Yeah, that must be difficult. Yeah.
It is difficult, but if you're not going to, when we work together with pre-owned businesses, or any individual that comes in, sometimes they come, can you check the watch out? It's only fair to tell them exactly what your opinion is, because it's an opinion. Because also, sometimes we might say one thing and another watchmaker or another business or another expert will say the other thing. That's why I think with particular pieces, if they're, it depends what you're selling. If it's a new Daytona and it's fake, there's not going to be a question about it. But if it's, I don't know, a vintage watch where there is a little bit more story to it, a bit like the kid, the one that we had on the TV show.
The Explorer, the Submariner, the Rolex Explorer dial Submariner.
Yeah, exactly. Where you really needed about 5 people to give their opinion to actually, and it's not just because there might be one of them might be right and we're just going to pick who's right. It's also because if you're going to sell that watch, you want to put a value on that watch, you need experts to say a certain thing, because otherwise how are you going to value a piece if you have no idea? You've got one opinion. If 5 people say the same thing, then you can go, okay, that's probably right, but it might not be right. We might a lot with these Rolexes, they were hand painted in the old days, so dials were hand painted as well. So how can you, and they were hand engraved, so you can say, or they were misprints as well, and they're still sometimes misprints. But how do you know if it's a misprint or if it's a dial restorer that's done the job? sometimes gets really complex.
I think there's an element of beauty in the eye of the beholder when it comes to especially vintage pieces, where some people want a absolutely pristine watch. So if you go look at some of the vintage Omega pieces where they want an absolute pristine dial and they don't care that it's been repainted, or there's someone who really, really wants the original piece, how it came out of the factory, regardless of whether the dial is in, not great condition. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about watches, is there is something for everyone. Everyone can choose how they want to collect watches. And you mentioned value there. I mean, how much are watch collectors considering value when they're trying to buy watches nowadays? Does that stop people from buying certain watches, do you think?
I mean, for me, I feel like the last couple of years, we've talked about value for the very first time. I mean, like, since the prices have gone nuts, we never ever talked about value necessarily before. I mean, you knew if you bought a Rolex, you were onto a good thing for the rest of your life. If you wanted to use it as currency in Nairobi, you could sell it, and if you're in trouble, you'd have the cash. But now we're looking at lots of these makers, these Journes, these are, people are looking at them as investments, and then that means the brand has to be very careful about how it distributes. And to me, people are more and more interested in value and what that means to them. In some ways, I'm pleased to see how the market's changed in the last 6 months. Suddenly you're on Chrono, you're on Subdial, you're on others, and you suddenly see prices, you're like, hey, actually, that feels more appropriate, and maybe I could make that work. Bloody dangerous, but I think I think that's where we're at. Yeah, my gut feel. Do you think clients are buying more for returns? Maybe
it's funny because there's so many different types of clients and types of people in general.
You can't tell probably as soon as someone comes through the door whether they're going to be.
You can. Yeah, can also tell which brand they're probably being.
That's fascinating.
But I think everybody has a different way of why they buy. Some people buy, people flip watches, and brands don't like it, but there's no law for it, so people can still do it. But like you say, there is a fit for everybody, and I think you have collectors that collect the most awful watches that are never going to make money, but they love it, and that's nice. They wear it, and then they wear the watches, they enjoy it, and then you have collectors that buy a watch, they go on their knees to the AD that they don't de-sticker the watch because it'll lose value. Then it goes into a safe, and then the safe closes, and they pay a fortune on insurance values, and then when they think, oh, it's really high now, and then I'm going to sell the watch, or they sit on it and give it, it's like an investment that they give over to their grandchildren. Because let's not forget, a lot of people buy as well because if you pass a house down to your children or your next of kin, you pay a big chunk of tax they will pay. The same if you have any capital that you're going to pass on. So a lot of people nowadays also see it as kind of a, if I give you this watch and it's also going to make maybe money, then, that is a good investment because, I'm not going to lose so much to the government by passing something on. So, which is funny.
We could go on, Megan, for many, many hours. For a number of reasons, we're going to come to a close, mainly because it's so bloody hot in here. I feel like my trousers are going to have to... No, sorry. We've stripped naked for the last episode. Is there a grail? Is there a watch that... I know you don't typically buy big pieces yourself, but is there something that you thought, hey, one day, if that watch came through the door, is there one that's caught your eye over the years that you're just like... You have a love
I have
affair
several on how rich I'm going to be later on in life.
What's the fuck you watch? The ultimate fuck you.
No money.
No money. Money's not a consideration, but it speaks to you in a way that.
Well, I want. Is Pim gonna listen to this? Pim, I want a Christian van der Klauw. Come on.
Which reference? Which one?
Sorry?
Do you know which one?
The Journe, which is I can show it to you later. It's got a beautiful blue dial. And it has the whole astronomical side to it, which all pops out and all different planets spin around. I love it. So that would be my grill. But I would love a Lange and Söhne as well if I had the money for it. I would have, even if it's a Lange 1 or something. I would be quite happy with that. Yeah, it's
funny, isn't it? Because now we're talking artistry in watches, which is so different to like you talk about the movement and you talk about the dial, but this is a whole nother. This is philosophy. This is artistry. This is something special. Megan, thank you so much. Anyway,
Thank you
till
very
next
much.
time.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Gents, thanks for joining as well. It's a pleasure to have had you.
So interesting. Thank you. Yeah.